Hi everyone. The thing is with this review, like this wasn't the first initial time I've watched this movie. This is when I went back to it after a while and watched it again. And Menhaj Huda made a film called Kidulthood, and it's all about it basically in a short amount of time between teenagers of the underworld, well, basically just normal teenagers in London. And the movie starts out really fucking depressing. Actually, one girl hangs herself within the first, 15 minutes of the film. I think it might have been hanging herself, but she killed herself regardless because she was getting bullied so severely in school. And that alone made me really depressed because I was bullied extensively when I was growing up as a kid. And, so I can really relate to that. The violence in this movie is actually kind of shocking. I mean, if anyone has seen my movie Suburban Children, there's some violence in there for the teenagers and whatnot. This takes it way, way further than that. These teenagers, they get involved in gangs, and also they get involved with the drug trade in order to make money and basically, live the life they want to live. And this is just, alright, it's insane, actually, how well put together this movie is. I mean, I believe it was made for a grand total of about, I think it was about maybe $800,000. I'm not sure, I might be overshooting that. But this movie was written by Noel Clarke, who also plays the character Sam. And actually, Noel Clarke would write and helm the sequel to this movie, which was nowhere near as good as Kidulthood. This was a good movie. This was a really well piece of independent cinema. It has some pretty strong performances by people who really, haven't really been in anything, including a very good first screenplay. I think it's the first screenplay by Noel Clarke. And also he gives a really good performance as Sam. So the violence in this movie is kind of shocking, especially when in the very beginning the girl who kills herself is bullied. It's so brutal how it happens, and literally it happens a second or two before the teacher walks in the room. And that's exactly how bullying happened. It always happens behind the scenes. And so this captured that very well. And not only that, it kind of captured the attitude, the punk attitude of London during this time. And this movie came out, I believe, in 2008, this movie came out in 2004. So I was way off. But, okay, performance-wise, some of the characters kind of acted like they were a little too pissed off half the time, but granted, that was their characters. Their characters were supposed to be these brutal teenagers who are immersed in this culture, in this drug culture. So, while we are giving these characters, and also the thing is it's just also about teenagers going way over their head. I mean, the funny thing is, this is not supposed to be a review about any of my films that I put out. If any of you have seen my movie Stallions and Mules, it's a lot like this. And the funny thing is, I never saw this movie before I made Stallions and Mules. Stallions and Mules actually was a lot more influenced by Jackie Brown than anything else, which I won't get into because that's a complicated, convoluted conversation. But alright, Kidulthood is if you really like independent cinema, if you really like and really respect these really low-grade character studies, because that's what this movie is. It's a real good character study about the people in the film. And the music is all London underground. It's all these underground groups, rap, rock, and everything like that, providing a soundtrack for the movie. So that's cool. So you kind of got this underground feel, like you're almost peeking into this underworld musical underbelly of London, and it makes it so much more entertaining and interesting to watch. if you really had like, you know, like a basic pop, like popular music score, if you put, you know, like if you wanted to put like famous rappers like, you know, Lil Wayne or, you know, Eminem or something like that in there, that would have been considered to be, you know, cliche because that's what they usually do. But no. This movie does, basically, it keeps the raw feel of it through the entire movie. It never cops out. And the ending, I'm not going to say it because I hate giving away spoilers. Unless it's in a cinema story review. But it's like the ending of this movie makes it so that the entire film wasn't a waste. I don't know. I mean, this is a hard movie to try to review because it's so unique on so many levels. It's almost like Rolling with the Nines, which was an English gangster film, which was pretty brutal. This one's like a teenage version of that. And they don't use guns a lot. I mean, there's this one scene where one of the characters gets cracked over the head with a bat. And the way it's edited and shot and paced, it's just done so well. I felt like I actually was like, oh my god, he actually hit him across the head. I mean, I know camera techniques. I know how you can position a camera to make it look like something hit when really something didn't. This literally looked like it made contact, and that was something that was really interesting. And I mean, the wit is funny. The wit is funny. It's on mark, and it's also very intelligent. It's not something just for the sake of wit. And a lot of people, including myself, have been guilty of just trying to throw some wit in there to make it sound intelligent when really some of it really just isn't. But this one, that's not the case. Kidulthood is something that I really recommend to people who like gangster movies, who like character studies. If you also like Larry Clark's films, like Kids, Bully, Ken Park, you'll probably like this one too. It's done in very similar style. It's not really telling that much of a plot. It's more of a story-based, kind of like just, you know, tell the story of this timeline of these characters in a certain amount of in a certain set time. Which, and it's all condensed because no one wants to, you know, watch people hang out for 8 hours wondering what they want to do before they get into the interesting stuff. So it's kind of sped up. So that's a little bit different than movies like Kids and Bully and whatnot, because that actually has a lot of padding throughout it, but it's still necessary. The one thing that's really interesting about this movie is that it kind of gives all the perspective that this is about lost innocence and whatnot, but I think it's a little bit more direct than that. It's more about how innocence really isn't there. How innocence is kind of an illusion, which is a concept that I really like, because I really think that in movies that's really hard to portray, especially if you want sympathetic characters. But this is the fact that, you know, innocence itself is an illusion, and that in partnership with that idea is that the youth that we experience is wasted away on various different things, on sex, drugs, you know, partying and whatnot. I'm not saying I'm against any of those things necessarily and whatnot. I won't say anything for or against it, because that's not what this review is about. But when it comes down to this movie, it's really about, like, it really has this feel of that, you know, innocence is an illusion and that youth is wasting away. And the fact that they put this in the underground culture of this, you know, the underground of London teenagers is something that's really interesting, because, you know, as an American, I'm not really knowledgeable to the fact that I really know a shit ton about modern London, because I've never been there. But this movie seems really, really realistic. I'm not saying that everyone in London is like this, obviously. I've seen tons of movies that prove exactly the opposite, and of course you can just watch the news, watch a documentary, talk to someone who's from London. But for this subculture, for the subculture that is focused on in the movie with these kids, it really, really does pay off. So Kidulthood, I definitely give a really nice 4 out of 5. There are parts in it that I think are really lacking, and they really could have pushed it a bit further. I've always been a person who's a staunch believer in whether you should push a movie too far rather than not pushing it far enough. Because it's better to have excess in one thing just by even a little bit than having not enough of something to a point where it makes your movie kind of seem quaint and forgettable. But 4 out of 5, definitely. Everyone, if you guys like docudramas, if you like Larry Clark, hell, if you like crime movies in general, like if you like Garone's Gomorrah, or if you like Scorsese films and whatnot, you'll probably most likely get a kick out of this. And actually, no, especially if you like Guy Ritchie films, Kidulthood is definitely up your alley.